Okay, let's hope I got this right this time. I'm sharing my PowerPoint show on July 21st, but this will be for the academic week starting July 22nd. ITS 832 Information Systems in a Global Economy. And of course, we're focusing on information systems policy in that global economy. Good evening, everyone. Here's our overview. We'll talk about this week's interesting topic, disruptive technologies and their resulting public policy or lack of public policy, and how we research those, how we add to the body of knowledge in that area. I'll talk about the exact discussion question and some discussion post pointers. This week you have a writing assignment, but this should be really easy and rewarding because it's a personal connection assignment. We'll go into details on that assignment here in a little while. And then this week's writing tip will be literature reviewing, something you will be doing for hours and hours and hours as you accomplish your dissertation. And then we'll conclude. Let's see here. Okay, this week's topic, I wanted to focus on what is really a loose collection of new topics, new technologies. Try and keep it focused on information systems. There's a lot of things out there in just in tech in general, materials and air and space and things that are really changing life for us in the 21st century. But we're in a PhD IT program, so we'll focus on information technologies and information systems. So the phenomenon, the areas of technology are up to you all to discuss. I'm open. Some that I have seen as being disruptive and read somewhat in the literature that are presenting a real challenge to legislators and regulators and people in the public arena, um, in how to handle them because they change, they disrupt the way we do things, and we may or may not have policies and procedures and uh, of how to deal with them. So just not an information systems example, but these little electric scooters that you see. I was in downtown Denver getting my diploma last weekend. We only walk once a year, so I flew out to Denver to be in my doctoral dissertation or my doctoral graduation ceremony. It was a great trip, but those new scooters that you can rent and pick up and then just leave anywhere are causing mayhem on city streets across America, at least, somewhat in Europe, I believe, too. So that's a new technology that is disrupting normal rules because you're not littering, you're not abandoning a vehicle, you're just leaving a scooter there for the next person to pick up. But they get in the way. People trip on them. People coming by in a wheelchair or can't, and someone who's has a impairment with their sight might smack into them. They just leave them laying on the sidewalk. So the policy of exactly how to deal with those is emerging. That's just an example. Again, not from information systems, but that's the kind of disruptive technology we're looking at. Things that are coming out um, that we're having trouble dealing with from a policy standpoint. And if you're a business person in that scooter business, you would have to decide how to implement the policy when a city finally writes a law, and how you're going to comply with that law. And again, that has information systems examples and comparisons, equivalents. Okay, so some things that are no kidding information systems and deep in our area of expertise. Autonomous vehicles are a mobile artificial intelligence platform. The way they're designing them now to read cues from people and animals running out in the street and piles of garbage being left where they weren't there yesterday, and dealing with traffic signals and stop signs and merging traffic and human powered bicycles and human driven cars and how these things integrate is a huge area of debate and in public policy that you could examine this week. Drones um, also have a lot of onboard computer processing, and they're expanding. A lot of that video is taking up space, whether it's for commercial purposes or government use. The airspace that those drones live in is the big thing. Airspace control is the big thing you hear about discussed on TV, and photography and the privacy aspect, and how that integrates with things like facial recognition software, image recognition software. Another hugely disruptive technology, information systems technology to talk about is artificial intelligence, and to a lesser extent the way artificial AI integrates with robotics. But that's going to disrupt if everything keeps going on its current trajectory. That's going to disrupt the workforce hugely. Again, a little bit of a overlap with autonomous vehicles because that's also an AI exercise. But if they just make a car if they take the human driven cars off the road and make those cars not artificially intelligent but just really smart, and like a train kind of where it just stays on the road, and we all hook together in little train tracks, artificial intelligence is still going to disrupt uh, the medical profession. They're getting to be, Watson is getting to be smart enough with enough gathered data to make medical recommendations, legal recommendations. Artificial intelligence, when they finally create your first generation general purpose robot that can take out the trash or take this plate to that table over there and serve it to those people, that's gonna, or pick those oranges on that tree over there, or anything else that's a semi-skilled labor. Uh, Pressure wash that sidewalk. Um, that's going to disrupt millions upon millions of jobs. So there's some sense of how we regulate the use and how we minimize the disruption, or at least engineer the integration of those platforms into uh, our current economy and society. Mobile phones and are having a huge impact on our daily life and causing a need for the public sector to think about how to regulate their use. Talking mostly about distracted driving, texting, and looking at your map, and using any other app on your phone while you're driving is I believe, and you might find this study out there, I believe studies have shown, and we're all about the literature, studies have shown that distracted driving from texting is as dangerous or more than drinking and driving. That's a perfect example of a need for policy that you could enumerate in your class discussion this week. Texting while walking. There are numerous ways that mobile phones are disrupting our normal life and causing a need, or at least in some people's eyes, a need for policy. Facial recognition software, again, that gets into the privacy that we've covered already. Human RFID chipping, that's more of an ethical question, an ethical study that you might find as to whether or not we even want to go that way. I know in Scandinavia they're starting to implant chips in people's wrists to use, and they have smart doorknobs that reads who's allowed to open that doorknob and who's not. It has people in this country kind of freaked out. So that's another type of disruptive technology: identification, authentication, authorization technology that you could examine in discussion this week. So that and any other, as long as there's an information technology spin you can put on it, or an impact on information technology professionals, and how we take that policy and it drives changes in our implementation strategy so that we comply with that policy, or we stop doing something that doesn't comply with that policy, again bringing us into compliance. Any of those topics are open for discussion this week. Okay, so that's our technology area. I'll post the slides like I did last week, but here are some clickable links on. I found these are all on Google Scholar, And not only can you find these articles on Google Scholar, the great thing about Google Scholar is you find citations that you'll be able to download into your bibliographic software, which I'm hoping to demonstrate this evening, because I understand perhaps that none of you are using bibliographic software, or if you are, it's something you procured yourself. So here's some links on the topics that I covered previously. I supplied a sample article that you might use to inform your discussion, so that you're not just speaking off the top of your head. Or here's the other set. Okay, so I found some articles there. There are articles out there. There are studies that you can use to reinforce your points. So our disruptive information technology discussion this week is how are IT researchers addressing public policy regarding these emerging technologies. So what you're going to do is choose one disruptive technology. It can be in one of the areas that I mentioned, or it can be in something that cloud technology. I didn't go into cloud technology. That's disrupting the way we do IT infrastructure at the company level enormously. So if you want to talk about, but you have to have a tie-in with public policy. So please don't repeat what you've already repeated about information protection. We've talked till we are absolutely, completely examined protecting information and the need to protect it and laws to protect it and protecting information. Let's go completely somewhere else with this week's discussion, please. So what I need to see are 4 sections within your discussion response. So each of these bullets should be in your response as a heading, and then you'll put your response to it. So provide a brief description of the technology, current existing policy activity, things that are either in place to regulate that technology, or things that are about to be voted on. So no kidding, the current state of policy. And then in the literature, not your own recommendations, but in the literature, what sort of recommendations are you seeing researchers make to policymakers? And you'll see these are going to be in the findings sections of journal articles. The findings and recommendations don't speak to your own opinions. Report on what the literature is saying that known researchers, published researchers, are making in the way of policy, new policy to policymakers. And then here, this is a new part that I want you to get into in the literature, which will help you greatly in your dissertation quest. And that is to pull out recommendations for future research. Virtually every decent peer-reviewed article you find is going to have a very structured format. And the last thing they talk about, more really after the findings, is recommendations to build on what they found and further enhance the body of knowledge. So as you're reading these journal articles, read many of them. Don't just find one and jump on that and just show us that article. That's not what we're doing here. Make sure you're going into these articles and you're checking out the recommendations for future research in that topic area, because that's how you're going to justify your dissertation. You are going to justify the gap in the literature that you are filling with your original research when you do your dissertation by using the literature and what published authors are saying. Hey, we need more research in this area, and you will use that as your identified literature gap going forward with your dissertation. When you get there, apparently most folks are pretty early in the program, so I'll put as much of that kind of advice as I can in going forward. Okay, so that's the week 4 discussion. I want to see each of those 4 bullets, word for word, cut and paste into your discussion responses, and then you'll fill in a paragraph that pertains to each one of those, leaning on the literature as appropriate. So here are the pointers going forward. Some of this is going to be a repeat, sorry, but folks are not following all of my pointers. So we'll just keep trying. Repeat the discussion question instructions at the top of your response. And then again, each one of those 4 bullets should be you should have 4 sections, 4 headings, 4 paragraphs. Okay. In those paragraphs, use a topic sentence that directly quotes the instructions so that I can tell you are addressing the topic of that paragraph in your own words. So you make up the topic sentence and then you support that topic sentence with some development sentences, just like we've done forever and ever and ever in our master's degrees and in our undergraduate degree papers, Comp 101, and in high school. Back to basics, back to clear, clean, explanatory, original writing. Okay. One thing I am seeing in class discussion and in your papers is a fundamental and profound either confusion or refusal to accept the difference between paraphrasing a source and rewording it. And for those that are rewording, taking an article and trying to put it into their own words so that it passes a plagiarism checker, that's who I'm talking to. And that's what's got to change to get through this program. First issue with plagiarism is a reduced grade. Second one fails the course. Third issue is removal from the program. And I'm an instructor, so I'm going to just leave the enforcement to the university, but there needs to be, for probably half, maybe 3/4 of the content I'm seeing in discussion and in papers, there needs to be a fundamental shift in approaches and the way you guys are writing, if you want to complete the course and the program. Paraphrasing is where you take the gist, the overall meaning of someone's study, and you summarize it in a sentence, maybe 2. Say I'm writing about drones, and say there's a journal article, a recent study that was conducted that says 100 Federal Aviation Administration air traffic controllers were polled, and 95 of them said that they have seen a drone flying in their airspace. Okay, that journal article, just to report that fact, is probably going to be 10 pages long, and it's going to go into the background, and it's going to talk about drones and what they are, and it's going to review some of the existing literature on drone policy and Federal Aviation Administration exclusion zones, and it's going to go into excruciating detail on all the information you need to be smart enough to understand the results of a survey. Okay, so what that means is, if you paraphrase that report, that finding, you would say that according to Smith 2019, 95 out of 100 FAA controllers have seen a drone in their airspace in the past year, or whatever he says. Okay, that in and of itself, that sentence was never in that article. They reported it with statistical confidence and through a hypothesis and all of the the normal quantitative measures and quantitative language. And all you want to say is that drones are a big problem. In fact, in a recent study, 99 out of 100, 95 out of 100 FAA controllers have seen a drone over their airspace. So that's how you paraphrase a report, and you're doing that to make a point in your own paper. Okay, and you do that with one sentence, and you do it here and there with different studies, and that you're building a case, you're building an argument. You would have done this in a thesis if you'd had a master's degree with a thesis. So this is not new if for really any academic writing at all. So that's paraphrasing. Okay, rewording is when you take an article that is loosely related to class discussion and you just go in and you change big data to large information and other nonsensical things that just ruin the meaning of the article and make it look like a random word generator. That's rewording. That's not paraphrasing. So don't do that in class discussion. Take a clean, empty Word document with nothing in it and start typing and construct your sentences yourself. If you're not an expert in the subject, I would construct it. I always start with an outline. In fact, I would start with those 4 questions, and then I'd go into Google Scholar, and I'd maybe write a topic sentence, and I'd go into Google Scholar, and I would start finding articles with that subject, and I would read, and I'd read, and it would probably take me 2 hours of reading and a little bit of writing, a little bit of reading, a little bit of writing, in my own words to accomplish the DQ for this week, 2, maybe 3 hours. And that's what I did for the 3 years I was enrolled at Colorado Technical University. I answered 2 DQs every class, actually every week. 2 DQs one week, 1 DQ the next. 2, 1, 2, 1. So at the end of a 10-week quarter, I had done, I don't know what, 25 discussion questions. We only have 8. So put some thought and analysis and originality. That's what I've been harping on. And unsuccessfully concentrating on is getting everyone in the course to write in their own words, not trying to use somebody else's article and then reword it, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. And it doesn't give you any practice writing originally. You're certainly not going to be able to do that with a dissertation and make any sense at all. So you might as well get used to it in class discussion and in your own papers. We're still seeing obvious rewording of articles. If you look through the class discussion and you actually read it critically, you'll see people rewording, not paraphrasing, rewording the same article, and it's bungled one way in one post, and it's messed up a different way in another post. And really, just write. In class discussion, you can use personal pronouns. You can say, I went on Google Scholar and found this really interesting article. It talks about this and that, and you can write in informal English in class discussion. I won't deduct points or anything on it. On your papers, you should set a somewhat academic tone and avoid personal pronouns, as you will in your dissertation writing. But the main thing is to stop plagiarizing. Just because you change the words doesn't mean you change the structure. It would be wrong to take a Frank Lloyd Wright architecture of a building and just change the color of the paint or put slightly different windows in if the whole building still looked the same. That's still wrong. You're still using the essence, the structure of someone else's work, and it doesn't do you any good to use that approach. So it's week 4. We're halfway through the class. No more warning, no more pleading. That's the last you'll hear of it from me. So if this is by chance the first lecture you've heard, I would go back and listen to the first 3. Okay, so your writing assignment this week it's not tied to this week's content. It's tied to all the content areas, all the policy areas and technology areas that I highlighted in the week 2 lecture. And it's personal. Think of information systems policy and what you currently do for a living. Here are the particular instructions. I won't read them out loud. I'll post these in Microsoft Word as well, but they'll be in these slides. So go through this personal connection assignment. 2 pages, 3 pages max. Some of you went to great lengths to paste 6 pages worth of someone else's articles and then reword them. And when I ask for 3 pages maximum, I mean 3 pages maximum. That's all you get. When you're developing software and someone gives you a requirement, you don't go do something else. You focus on the requirement. Well, when you're given instructions in an academic writing or at work, you follow the instructions. And if you're given a maximum number of lines of code in a module, that's what you get. So anyway, 3 pages maximum, 3 pages maximum for this personal connection assignment. I'd like to start giving substantive feedback on everyone's original writing. That's the object here. And I can't do that if I'm reading 6 pages of poorly reworded plagiarism. So let's get past that. There's the rest of the connection assignment. It says 500 word. They're saying 2 pages minimum. I'm adding the 3 page max because I don't want to read 10 pages. So there's the specific instructions. And again, I'll put this in Microsoft Word out there in the week 4 folder. Okay, so moving forward, reviewing literature. You'll see when you start reviewing literature that there's an extremely focused and traditional format to academic journal articles. So get used to that format. It's an introduction. It's a review of the current state of the literature and the current state of studies and the body of knowledge, how they propose to fill that, the methodology of the study, the findings, recommendations for future research. They're pretty much all exactly like that. Now, some articles that are not original studies will be more like a literature review, but they'll still use that literature review to do something, to make recommendations or recommend a future research because they've found gaps by just doing a literature review. So bibliographic software. I'm hoping at the end of these slides, I'm going to be able to give you a quick demonstration of EndNote, which was the software that was provided to me as part of my program with Colorado Technical University. I would reach out to your academic advisor. I'll post a question to my peers as to whether or not I wasn't sure if you guys were given that or not. Again, this is my first course with Cumberland's. I used EndNote. I heard RefWorks is really good too. Anything you use. I found EndNote for $113, which compared to your books and tuition is not a great cost, and it saves so much time. And I could never have finished my dissertation without it. I couldn't have done it. I would have quit. It's that good. It's that magic. Okay, so I'll do a demo hopefully after the presentation. Google Scholar. I can't say enough about Google Scholar. If you click on the quote marks, you will see the citation that you can download, and then you can add that citation to your bibliographic software. And then if you have the full text of the article, you can save that in your bibliographic software, and you can start to build a library. I had hundreds of articles on my topic, which was information or enterprise social media, and on methodology and other factors. Anyway, one thing to look for in future assignments, and I may work it in here. We may do an annotated bibliography because they're really useful in one of the next 2 writing assignments. An annotated bibliography is basically a literature review where you find an article, you summarize it, and then you say why it's useful to you in your research area. There are many formats for them, and they're pretty useful. If you've done one before, you know what I'm talking about. And again, when you're reviewing literature and writing about it, read what you have written out loud to yourself. If it doesn't sound like something you would say to a colleague in a professional setting, then it's wrong. Reword it. And and if you proofread and reword and read and reread your writing, it'll be just fine. But write it originally. Write it yourself. Don't reword somebody else's writing. Okay. Uh, Due to circumstances outside of my control, I'm having to report plagiarism. And I want to stop doing that. And I want to focus more on learning and less on academic violations. It's bumming me out. Okay. It is bumming me out. So stop if I'm talking to you. If I'm not, I apologize that I have to focus on it too much. But if you are writing originally, if the rest of the class will come along with you, it will give you something worthwhile to discuss in class. Not just here's another poorly reworded article that I have to try and comment on when I really just want to say stop doing that. So it's frustrating. Okay, no more warnings, no more pleading. After this lecture, I'm not going to mention plagiarism or poor rewording or bad paraphrasing or any of that kind of stuff in my lectures, which I have, what, 3 more? Again. So there you go. Fair warning. Do your own work, no matter what, no matter how long it takes you. No matter if you think you're not writing technically enough, or you don't think you sound smart, or you think I'm looking for something that looks like a journal article and I'm not. No matter what, do your own work. Write from an empty document. Okay. Again, as I've said in other conclusions, I'm still developing future content, still thinking about exactly what to say about those different topic areas that I covered in your week 2 lecture. If there's something that you wanted to work into class, give me a shout on email and I'll see what I can do. Next week, we'll talk about taxation and government revenue in all of its forms in the age of information systems. I'm going to, like I did this week, do some research and find you some links and some areas. Everything from come to find out, if you, a lot of you are software developers, you work in one state, and if you maybe telecommute and do some offsite work in another state, you can get double taxed. You can be taxed for residing in one state, and the company that you work for. And I've heard, and again, maybe you'll find this in the literature, I've heard that New York State is going to start taxing companies' employees no matter where those employees sit. So you could be taxed, say, with income tax in Massachusetts, but you actually do your work in New York, and they both are high tax states, and now you're getting double whammed. So that's a policy, I would think, for the workers. That'd be a policy problem that you would want to see your decision makers in Congress address. Those are the sorts of things. But then we'll get into maybe tariffs and, how do you tariff the importation of software? Any of those sorts of things. Like I said, I'll do some research for the lecture next week and hopefully have some thought-provoking resources for you to use for next week. Again, questions, concerns. I got one question or concern on this week's feedback over email. One out of over 40 students. So if you're not sure what you're doing, if you don't understand, send me an email. I check my email from University of Cumberland's at least once a day. If you literally, you got your feedback and you have no idea what you're doing wrong, send me an email and I'll give you even more instructions. Perhaps we can set up a Zoom meeting and have a quick one-on-one and sort it out. But I think if you listen to my lectures and you really be honest with yourself, everyone knows exactly how to get through this course and do a good job. I would bet an ice cold Coca-Cola that everybody in this course knows exactly what I'm talking about. So let's just get past it. Okay, so that is my last slide. So I'm going to stop sharing that. And I'm going to share, hopefully, my screen. Okay, so I'm going to bring up Microsoft Word. Hopefully I'm sharing my screen, guys. If this doesn't work, I apologize. Let's see what I got here. I don't think I'm really sharing my screen because I don't see the, there. Am I sharing my screen? Man, I apologize. Let's see if I can bring up a Word document. I think I'm there. Again, I won't know until I stop the recording and check it out. But okay, so we're in Microsoft Word. The one thing you can notice here is I have this tab that you probably don't unless you're an EndNote user, in which case you're groovy. Send me an email. If you are an EndNote user, please shoot me an email and confirm that you are. Or if you're using RefWorks or some other bibliographic software, shoot me a note. So that's Microsoft Word, and you'll notice that there's this tab, and it lets you control this application called EndNote, which is down here. Okay, so here's my EndNote library. And this is a folder that I created with references on methodology. Let me slide this stuff over here. There are different fields. You can make your own notes about your articles that you collect. Here's the author and the year. I try methodology. You might find some older stuff. I tried to use newer studies when I was, like working on my literature gap and recommending, justifying my study. But then, like, here's the title to the article, and you'll notice this paperclip. I have full text copies of all of these. Some I got through interlibrary loan from my library. Some I just got from the library. The different databases that the library subscribes to. Some of them I got from Google Scholar, and some are just posted online out there by the author. Sometimes the author will have a website and he'll post them there. And then here is your title. So I did a qualitative study to explore enterprise social media. So there's a lot of qualitative stuff in my dictionary or in my EndNote library here. You'll see my ESM, Enterprise Social Media Focused Articles, 78 different studies. And I got the full text on all of these because I had to paraphrase them. I had to say what Dr. Leonardi's main finding was when he studied work practices in organizations. I didn't use his words and reword them. I didn't say, according to Leonardi, and then paste in a sentence or a block of text. You'll see, I put my writing examples out there. I put my dissertation out there. I paraphrased what he found and used it to construct a rational argument. Okay, so that's what you do with bibliographic software. You can go to Google Scholar, which I'll do. But here, let's say I want to quote something that Leonardi did. He's trying to develop theory. He's doing all kinds of stuff. You'll see I got quite a few articles from Dr. Leonardi. He works out at University of Santa Barbara. He runs a program out there that he started. So say in here I want to paraphrase, and this is something y'all can help me with. I have 1-inch margins here. When I print this out, I have a 1-inch margin, but it looks like I'm typing at the very top of the page. I don't know what happened. Word just started doing this one day, and I'm not sure what button I clicked on wrong. I'm in print layout, which used to work anyway. So I could say according to, and then here's the magic, guys. Or no, let's not do an according to. That's really gets old. You see that a lot in writing. I could say enter, and this is just an example. I might be saying something wrong. Enterprise social media is the fastest growing software segment in the enterprise market. Okay. That may or may not be true. This is just an example. Okay, so say I said that, and say he went out and did a study of the enterprise software market, and enterprise social media is fast growing. It's growing faster than virtualization tools or configuration management tools or anything else. That's probably not true, but say he did, and you want to prove that you made this point. See, I'm paraphrasing. He might have done a study, and it might be 10 pages long that looked at the different segments, software segments in the enterprise market, and he might have shown that one to be on top. And I'm uh, cherry picking that fact to make a point in my paper. So I say, but nobody cares what I say because I'm just Don Walker. You need to cite published authors, right? Because you don't have standing. You're not a doctor yet. So you only cite published literature, which has been peer reviewed. So, bam, I say that enterprise social media is the fastest growing software segment in the enterprise market. Okay, and now I want to prove that. So I have over here in EndNote, I have Dr. Leonardi's article selected. And I go up here and I go to EndNote. And I already did. This is the EndNote tab. I've already done that. If I were here, not there. If I were home, that's the home. You're doing your normal formatting stuff, choosing your font. Go away. There you go. Now I go to the EndNote tab and I say insert citation, insert selected citation, because I have one selected in EndNote. Kablam! Leonardi 2014. And then there's my period. And then I say something else. Thing else that is fundamentally important. And I want to prove that. I go back to EndNote, find the article where they said something that was fundamentally important. Dr. Turbin, he's a textbook author. He says things that are fundamentally important all the time. Again, these are just examples, guys. I'm just showing you how to use EndNote. Okay, so now I can say insert citation there, insert selected citation, and now watch. Bam! It puts your references in APA format in your Word document. So if you can imagine, this is a dissertation, you've got 200 references. It gets unmanageable if you don't have bibliographic software. So I recommend something like EndNote, RefWorks. Any of them will do this stuff. And the other cool thing is, as you build this library, say maybe it wasn't Leonardi's 2014 article. You're like, oh man, it wasn't the 2014. It was a different article. So you backspace over that. Watch the reference list. Kaboom, gone. So you go and then you go back to EndNote and you say, nah, it wasn't 2014. It was newer than that. So we go back to our Leonardi stuff and, oh yeah, it was 2017. And you go back to your Word document and you say that Dr. Leonardi published that fact in 2017 in this article. And affordances for organizing. And there you are. Kabam, Leonardi and Vast. That's the one. It wasn't the 2014 article. So it's real easy to enter and delete your references, because as soon as you work with a citation, the reference comes in automatically. And it will keep you from listing a reference down here. And we can go back here and make this legitimate by saying in APA format. It keeps you from having a citation with no reference. In APA, you don't list references that you don't have a citation for, and you only list citations that you have a reference for and back forth. So there's one-to-one traceability. Now, you can use this reference multiple times, but you never, ever, ever use a citation that you don't have in your reference list, and you never list a reference that you don't cite. That's just the way it is. It's not a works cited or a bibliography of things that you read. It's got to be cited in APA format. Okay, so that's EndNote. And that's the end of this week's lecture. So wait, oh no, I wanted to show you Google Scholar real quick. Google Scholar. So I go here and I've got Google Scholar as one of my shortcuts. Kablam. Okay, so say I'm looking for, there you go. This is what I was Googling earlier tonight. Distracted driving and public policy. So say, trends and fatalities, and this will talk probably about the laws. Somebody needs to make a law because it's killing people. So say you want to. There's the full text of the article, so you can go get that and read it. And if it says something that you want to use as a foundational fact in your article, and you want to cite it, all you got to do is go over here if you have bibliographic software. But even if you don't, you can cut and paste. You can manually cite this article by cutting and pasting this segment into your paper. And a lot of you might already be doing that. And that's good, but check this out. You can download it into EndNote format. So say I want to do that. There's the download. Now I say open when done, and it will automatically come up, bam, automatically come up in EndNote. So that had an article that said something really important. So it said, for example, and I haven't read the article again. We're just doing examples here. Distracted driving causes more, and I'm making this up. I am writing this originally as we speak. Distracted driving causes more fatalities in the U.S. every year than lions, lightning, or cancer, which probably is not true. But anyway, say it did say that, and you want to quote that, and you want to make that point. Now I've downloaded it into EndNote without doing anything, right? And every once in a while you'll see an error, but most of those citations are good enough in Google Scholar to put in a discussion point. And then you say EndNote, insert citation, insert selected citation. There she is, or he. Here they are. Trends and fatalities from distracted driving in the United States. There's your reference, and there's your citation, and it's magic. It's just magic. So if you're not using bibliographic software, I cannot recommend it highly enough. If I hadn't been provided it, it would have been worth the $100 because this is going to be 2-3 years at least on your doctoral journey. You'll use this every assignment, every writing assignment. You'll use it every discussion. You'll use it in your dissertation until you are just sick of looking at it. But well, you've got a copy of my dissertation. How many pages of references that I have? And all of them I used in my dissertation, and in my literature review, particularly chapter 2. I paraphrased them. I said, what was their main point? You can pull up those articles. You can check out what the main point was that I said. They found this. They found that enterprise social media increases productivity, or it makes people feel like they're more of a part of the workplace. And if that was one of their major findings, I would use that in my dissertation. So that's how that works. A little bit more about academic writing. Okay, well, my mouth is really dry. I think I've been talking a long time, so I'm going to hit stop. I'm supposed to do this for an hour, so I apologize if I went over. All right, everybody, good night, and I'll see you in class discussion.